Okay. Uh, I am with Dov Scheindlin, who is the artistic director of Orpheus Chamber Orchestra for a while. We'll talk about that. It's a rotating position. Apparently very interesting autonomous orchestra, the Orpheus Chamber Orchestra. They are coming to Santa Barbara to the Granada Theatre on, let's see, Monday, November 30th. And that's part of their kind of West Coast tour they're going to do on the 29th. They're going to be at the Green Music Center in Sonoma State University. That's the gorgeous concert hall in Sonoma. Granada Theatre on the 30th, as I mentioned, under Community Arts Music Association sponsorship. UC Davis on the 2nd of December. And then a little place called Carnegie Hall on the 5th of December for performance. The concert on the 30th at the Granada Theatre in Santa Barbara is, tickets run $38 to $108 if you want to go posh. So it's just really very reasonable ticket pricing. 8 o'clock is the beginning time for the concert at the Granada Theatre on, I think that's Monday, isn't it? The 30th. Yes, Monday, the 30th of November.
Monday, that sounds right.
And the ticket number at the Granada Theatre, for those of you in Greater Southern California, let me give you the area code, which is area code 805. Telephone number is 899-2222. Or you can go online, granadasb.org, and order tickets. This is going to be quite a program. Guest artist is the violinist Augustin Haderich. I hope I pronounced his name correctly. And he's going to be doing the Tchaikovsky arrangement of The Fairy's Kiss, Stravinsky for fiddle and fiddle solo and orchestra. Have I got it right so far?
Sounds good. So
okay.
far.
And Tchaikovsky Valse Scherzo. The program is also going to include Handel, of course, the Concerto Grosso, Opus 6, number 5. I love that Opus 6 series, wonderful. And then a piece I've been waiting to hear live for a very, very long time, Respighi's The Birds, excuse me, not the verbs, the birds. Right. So, Dov, let's just start at the beginning about how this orchestra works. And let me just do the quote that I did the last time we chatted. From the website for Orpheus Chamber Orchestra. Collaboration, outreach, and democratic leadership. Tell me how that works with the chamber orchestra.
That's right. Well, first of all, Dan, thanks so much for having me, and we're so much looking forward to coming back to Southern California. It's been a while, a couple of years, and we're so excited. It's one of our favorite places to go. So Orpheus, as you noted in your introduction, we're a democratically led ensemble. We don't have a conductor. So unlike most ensembles, we don't have one person kind of, giving us directing information in a sort of a unidirectional way. Instead, we communicate with each other. We listen to ideas from every member, every performer, and we form a collective consensus on how we're going to play music, how we're going to make music. And everyone gets a chance to speak out, have their input and investment. And we as an orchestra get to employ the prodigious talents of every single one of our members.
Yes, and while at first take it might sound like a situation that could be chaotic and cause some friction, in fact, it sounds exhilarating.
Yeah, and in a way, I mean, it can be chaotic. Although over many years of practice, we've learned various systems for keeping keeping things flowing along. And we have a system we call the core. So we rotate leadership positions. So you'll notice, for instance, at our concert next week or in 2 weeks, that we'll have a different concertmaster for every piece. We'll have a different principal cello, a different principal oboe, a different flute. We all take turns in the leadership position. So everyone knows what it's like to be in the leadership position. So when they're not in the leadership position, although we feel free to speak out about things that are important, we also we understand the perils of undermining those whose responsibility it is going to be to lead that particular piece. So I think that it gives us a sense of perspective and allows us to sort of choose our battles, and also to once we have made decisions, even if they aren't the ones we might personally individually have made, to represent everything with total conviction and as a group.
Yeah, very good. Well, that helps explain the more refined manner in which these discussions amongst the orchestra are taken care of, and how artistic decisions—that's what these are—artistic decisions are handled. And speaking of your position, I mean, did you go into the position of artistic director kicking and screaming? How did that work? Did they throw darts at a wall? How did?
Right. Well, the great thing about Orpheus is that, obviously musical decisions in a particular piece, we feel free to speak, we all feel free to speak out. But when it comes to issues like what program are we going to do, what bus are we going to take to get from place to place, it can get pretty unwieldy to have 34 people weighing in on things like that. So we've also developed a system of a rotating artistic leadership. We have 3 artistic directors, and they're elected from within the membership of the group for 3-year terms, at which point they can run again for another term or step down and allow somebody else to take over. So it's sort of a microcosm of what we do with each individual piece. So we have 3 people who act as a sort of artistic committee for all the artistic issues that come up with the orchestra, for relations between the orchestra and the management and the board. And the 3 of us make major decisions in this way, in consultation with the membership, of course, but ultimately it's our authority to do that, and we rotate. And I have a lot of colleagues who were formerly in this position and understand perfectly well what I'm going through, and have really helped me through all the decisions that have to be made, and are very supportive, understanding the decisions that we have to take.
Yes. And you're in about, what, your first year?
I ran for this, well, let's see, I've been playing in Orpheus for about 10 years. I became a member in 2011, and I became an artistic director in 2013. So I took at least 2 years even as a member, and 8 years of playing with the group before I dared to put my name forward as an artistic director. But I felt after a while that it might offer something that might be, might enjoy. My particular profile as artistic is programming coordinator. So I coordinate the process by which we arrive at the programs. I come in with suggestions, they get batted around, they get changed, this and that happens, and we have to play with this soloist, we need to do this, we need to, but eventually it all comes together. We make these decisions as a team, but I guess I coordinate it to the extent it's coordinated.
I'm going to backtrack just a little bit. Born and raised in New York City.
Well, actually, born in.
Oh, you mentioned somewhere.
I was born in Canada, actually.
That's right. We mustn't forget.
But I grew up in New York City.
But we must not forget the Canadian origins.
Exactly.
Right. So sorry. I missed that one. But essentially, raised in New York City, find the young prodigy, I presume, at a certain age. You end up at Juilliard at an early age. Give me a little track of how that worked, and then the important one I asked you once before about was there a moment where you went to viola, or was it always there? The fiddle to viola thing.
First of all, I would not describe myself as a prodigy, more of a prodigal son, actually. But I did start. I always loved music. There was a lot of music in my household. My father is an amateur pianist. He's also a cantor and a rabbi, and so I grew up listening to him sing in the synagogue. And and of course he introduced me to classical music, and we went to concerts together. And I think when I was about 9, I started taking violin lessons. And it was the kind of thing where I listened to music passionately, and I played it on kind of on the side. And it was only maybe my junior year in high school that it started to occur to me that maybe this was something that I could really do full time. That could be something I so much loved, and I started to think of ways to make that my central pursuit in life. And anyway, my senior year I applied for Juilliard. I auditioned for Juilliard kind of as a long shot, and no one was more surprised than I was when I got in, but I was delighted, and I seized the opportunity. You need those years early on to develop as a classical musician. There are some things that it's hard to wait. You really need to bake these things in young, and so I seized the chance to get that kind of training, and it was great.
And you are married to Catherine Fong. The two of you play in the Metropolitan Opera Orchestra. How on earth, with 2 young kids, you've just moved into your new apartment? Give us all just a quick little thing. How do people that are so busy, and how do you juggle that life? I know everybody does that has a family.
It is very complicated. I would say first of all we have a lot of help, and that's the main thing. Is that we know we can't do it all. We have our schedule is different every week. It's different every day. We don't sometimes we play the same performances. Sometimes we play different performances. Sometimes I go on tour with Orpheus. There's all kinds of things. So we have to be ready for anything. We have a nanny who works for us full time, 40 hours a week, and she's fantastic. She's been with us since our first child was born. He's now almost 4 years old. So, she's as much a part of the family as we are, and we trust her 100%. We also have my parents who live in New York City and have also been extremely helpful with time and support and everything. So those things help. And then Zeke has a great nursery school right now, and so that's terrific. But, we have our lives improved when we discovered iCal. And we now our iCal we use like 6 different colors to signify the different types of events, and every time. Sometimes we change, the same events, and then they cross in the middle. We receive notifications, but it's really it's saved our lives to be able to instantaneously check in on what everyone's doing. So
imagine what it must have been like in your parents' time, which even I remember, even the 50s. I mean, it's just impossible to imagine a life
I
without the
can't
internet.
imagine. I mean, our iCal looks like the Department of Defense, war or something.
That's hilarious. Tell me a little bit about this program. Let's just have you give us, the audience, an overview of what they're going to hear at the Granada Theatre on the 30th of November.
I think it's an exciting program. I suppose I would think that since I helped choose it. But we're starting with a Handel Concerto Grosso, which is a terrific, ebullient piece, virtuosic. It begins with violins in a fanfare style, almost imitating trumpet. It has a grandeur that I love. And then we move on from there to this Stravinsky, a new arrangement of Stravinsky's Divertimento for violin and piano, which was in turn an arrangement that Stravinsky made of his own ballet, The Fairy's Kiss, Le Baiser de la Fée. And so that piece was written in 1928 as he was kind of moving towards a neoclassical style, a little bit away from the the more revolutionary, wild ballets of his early period. It in itself adapts melodies of Tchaikovsky, so it's sort of in a way an homage to Tchaikovsky, and we decided to include some Tchaikovsky later on in the program, which I'll get to. But so it's a program that really shows the way musical influence can be transmitted in several different ways. So obviously one of these is that Stravinsky took this music of Tchaikovsky, he then later arranged it for another combination, and now we have combined the two versions, the orchestra version for ballet and the violin and piano version. We had the distinguished violinist Dmitri Tchaikovsky, violinist, conductor, all-around musical superstar, arranger, experienced arranger. He arranged it for us for violin and orchestra. So we've sort of created a new violin concerto, and it's wonderful because, as a chamber orchestra, we have a slightly smaller size.
Yeah.
Without a conductor, there are certain limits to how big you want to go. Once you start to get to large distances across the stage, as we all know, sound travels more slowly than light. So your ears start to fool you as you hear things. You think you're together, and it gets too big. So we have a kind of size limitation, about 35 to 40 players. So we're always looking for new pieces to broaden our repertoire and to expand the repertoire for chamber orchestra, and this is a way in which we found to do it. Augustin Hadelich is an amazing artist, very interested in new music, very interested in creating new experiences, but also deeply immersed in the classics. And he and I came up with this suggestion, this idea of combining those two versions to make this new concerto.
Yes, and I had no idea that it had the orchestra had commissioned.
Oh yes, this was our yes, from Dmitri Tchaikovsky. And Tchaikovsky is a terrific arranger. He's famous for his arrangement of the Goldberg variations, which I was lucky enough to perform with him and another cellist member of Orpheus. And of course, a conductor, a violinist. As a solo violinist, he also has a keen understanding of how balance works. To be careful, in his arrangement, not to overwhelm the soloist. Yeah. So it was a perfect fit. Excuse me. We're then going to proceed with the Tchaikovsky Valse Scherzo, a sort of virtuosic showcase for the violin. We ties Tchaikovsky into the Stravinsky, which was written as an homage to Tchaikovsky himself. And then we're finishing with Respighi's amazing piece, The Birds. The Birds is a collection of 5 Baroque pieces, pre-existing Baroque pieces by composers who are not that well known. The most well known is probably Rameau, which the middle piece is an arrangement of his harpsichord piece, the La Poule, the chicken, and you can sort of hear chicken sounds, scratches being made during that movement. But so he took 5 pieces, each based on a theme of different birds, and from different Baroque composers, and he combined them. He orchestrated them in a modern style, modern for his time, but with respect to the musical milieu they came from, and he put it together in this fascinating way. Which, although even though all the notes had technically all been written, the effect is so original that it's an incredible composition. It's really an act of composition in the sense of composing, putting together these blocks and creating a tremendous experience. And so it sort of goes in with our theme for the program. It's reuse, readaptation, and turning
and a beautiful little mini masterpiece that's not performed very often. So
exactly.
I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah,
now, again, I'm just going to ask you as a little finale, and then I'm going to run through the material again, so we don't go over too much here. It's a little cornball, but actually, I'm rather curious. You're a violist.
Yes.
What is, in fact, in your mind? You've heard this question a million times, I'm sure. What is in your what's the viola concerto in the repertoire that just is the one?
Well, okay. So for me personally, as a violist, I mean, it's a very personal, subjective thing. I mean, there's a very limited range of works before, say, 1900. I mean, there's only rarely did the viola come out as a solo instrument. It was when it's done, it was kind of done as an effect. So most of the viola concertos are from the 20th century. I mean, there's of course the amazing symphony by Berlioz, the Harold in Italy. But I really don't think it qualifies as a viola concerto. Personally, I just don't. The viola is not sort of prominent enough within the texture. I mean, it's a wonderful piece. I love the piece. I love playing the piece. I really wouldn't consider it a concerto piece. So if you had to go with the concertos of the 20th century that are sort of, I always come back to the Walton viola concerto. I find it just so beautiful, ravishing in texture, nostalgic. It has a feeling of the time and place that it was written, but so beautifully crafted. And he may be a lesser known composer, but I think it's a masterpiece. And to me, it's how do you say it? I mean, you may not put him on a level with composers like Bartók or Berlioz, in the overall scheme of things, but I think it's like a great piece of his definitely stands up to an incomplete piece by Bartók, which it's a wonderful piece, but not. So to me, that's the concerto that I feel the warmest about.
And to me, I was waiting for you to identify the Walton concerto, so I'm delighted. Dov Scheindlin, excuse me. Dov, thank you very much for taking a few moments of your late afternoon in New York City. Busy man. Let me just run by the details, and then I'll say farewell. Okay. Orpheus Chamber Orchestra coming to Santa Barbara Monday, November 30th, 8 p.m., the Granada Theatre in downtown Santa Barbara. Tickets throughout Southern California. By the way, I don't say, I guess UC Davis, but mostly you guys are playing in the northern part of the state of California, Sonoma State University, UC Davis, and then of course back in New York for Carnegie Hall on December 5th. But this is going to be a very, very exciting program at the Granada Theatre on the 30th of November. Tickets. All of you watching this interview throughout Southern California, the area code is 805. The Granada Theatre box office number is 8992222. $38 to $108 if you want to get fancy and sit in the box. Handel, Stravinsky, Tchaikovsky, Respighi, the Birds. It's going to be a great program. Dov, many, many thanks again, and I'm looking forward to seeing you.
Great. Thank you so much. Thank you for having us, and be looking forward to being in California.
Right on. Bye-bye.